Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when you have to look in the mirror and tell yourself the truth. Not the comfortable truth, not the excuse-filled version, the real truth, the one that stings a little, the one that shakes you, the one that forces you to admit that the life you're living right now is a direct reflection of the version of yourself you've allowed to exist. And today, we're here for one reason only, to kill that weak version of you. I'm not talking about your dreams. I'm not talking about your potential. I'm talking about the habits that hold you back, the mindset that whispers later, the fear that tells you you're not ready, that version of you that chooses comfort over growth, excuses over action, and doubt over belief. That version has to go. Because here's the truth, nobody is coming to save you. No one is going to wake up early for you. No one is going to fight your battles. No one is going to build your future while you sit and wait for motivation to show up. If you keep waiting, you will stay exactly where you are. You don't need more time. You need more discipline. You don't need more opportunities. You need to stop wasting the ones you already have. You don't need someone to believe in you. You need to believe in yourself when nobody else does. See, the weak version of you loves comfort. It loves sleep. It loves procrastination. It loves blaming other people. It loves saying, I'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow turns into next week, next month, next year, and suddenly your life hasn't changed. And deep down, you know it. But today is different. Today is the day you draw a line. Today is the day you decide that average is no longer acceptable. Today is the day you stop negotiating with your excuses and start demanding more from yourself. Because there is a stronger version of you inside, one that wakes up early, one that stays disciplined, one that doesn't quit when it gets hard. But that version cannot live until the weak one dies. And tonight we're going to bury it. You see, the problem isn't that you don't know what to do. Most of you already know. You know you need to wake up earlier. You know you need to work harder. You know you need to stop wasting time on things that don't matter. The issue is not knowledge, it's execution. It's the gap between what you know and what you actually do. That gap is where the weak version of you lives. That version shows up when your alarm rings in the morning and you hit snooze. It shows up when you say you'll start working out, but you find another excuse. It shows up when you have a goal, but you choose comfort instead of effort. And every time you listen to it, it grows stronger. Every time you delay action, every time you avoid discomfort, every time you make excuses, you are feeding that weak version of yourself. And here's the dangerous part, it feels normal. It feels okay to stay in your comfort zone. It feels safe to avoid risk. It feels easier to do nothing, but easy doesn't build greatness. Easy doesn't create success. Easy doesn't change your life. Easy keeps you stuck. If you want to grow, you have to get uncomfortable. You have to wake up when you don't feel like it. You have to work when you're tired. You have to stay disciplined when nobody is watching. Because success is not built in the spotlight, it's built in the dark when it's just you and your decisions. And let me tell you something. Discipline is not about motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel like it, some days you don't. But discipline shows up every single day, no matter how you feel. You don't need to feel ready, you need to act ready. Because the truth is, you will never feel fully prepared. You will never feel like the timing is perfect. You will always find a reason to wait. But if you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. You have to start now. Right now, exactly where you are with what you have. Stop telling yourself you need more. Stop telling yourself you're not ready. Stop telling yourself you'll do it later. Later is a lie. Later is the weak version of you trying to survive. And if you want to change your life, you have to stop negotiating with that voice. You have to shut it down. Because success requires sacrifice. You're going to have to give up something, your comfort, your laziness, your excuses, your distractions. You can't have both the life you want and the habits that are holding you back. Something has to go. And most of the time, it's the old version of you. That weak version doesn't like change. It doesn't like pressure. It doesn't like challenges. It wants everything to be easy. But life doesn't work like that. If you want more, you have to become more. You have to push yourself beyond your limits. You have to do things that scare you. You have to take risks. You have to fail. And yes, you will fail. You will make mistakes. You will have days where nothing goes right. But that's part of the process. Failure is not the enemy. Quitting is. Every successful person you look up to, they failed, they struggled, they doubted themselves, but the difference is they didn't quit. They kept going when it got hard. And that's what separates the strong from the weak. The weak version of you quits when things don't go your way. It gives up when progress is slow. It looks for shortcuts. It looks for easy wins. But the strong version, it keeps going, it stays consistent. It understands that success takes time. You don't build a new life overnight. You build it one decision at a time. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you get stronger. Every time you take action instead of making excuses, you get closer. Every time you push through resistance, you become a better version of yourself. But it requires consistency. Not once a week, not when you feel like it every single day. And I know it's hard, I know it's uncomfortable. I know there are days when you don't feel like doing anything. But those are the days that matter the most. Because anybody can work when they feel motivated. But can you work when you don't? Can you stay focused when distractions are everywhere? Can you keep going when progress is slow? That's where real growth happens. That's where the weak version starts to die. Because every time you choose to show up, even when it's hard, you are proving to yourself that you are stronger than your excuses. And once you realize that, everything changes. You stop doubting yourself. You stop waiting for permission. You stop looking for validation from others. Because you know who you are becoming. And that confidence, it doesn't come from talking. It comes from doing, from putting in the work, from staying consistent, from proving to yourself over and over again that you can do what you said you would do. That's how you build self-respect. And when you have self-respect, you don't settle for less. You don't settle for average. You don't settle for excuses. You don't settle for a life that doesn't challenge you. You demand more from yourself. Because at the end of the day, this is your life. Nobody else is responsible for your success. Nobody else is responsible for your failure. It's all on you. And that might sound harsh, but it's also powerful. Because if it's all on you, that means you have the power to change it. You have the power to become better. You have the power to kill the weak version of yourself and step into the person you were meant to be. But it starts with a decision, a real decision. Not a maybe, not a someday, a right now decision, a decision that says, I'm done being average, I'm done making excuses, I'm done holding myself back. A decision that says, I'm ready to do the work. Because once you make that decision, everything else becomes easier. Not easy, but easier. Because now you have clarity. Now you have direction. Now you know what you have to do. And all that's left is to do it. So tonight, I want you to make a promise to yourself. Not to me. Not to anyone else, to yourself. Promise that you will stop making excuses. Promise that you will stay disciplined. Discipline will take you where motivation never can. Motivation feels good. It gives you that spark, that sudden rush where you feel like you can change everything overnight. You watch something inspiring, you get excited, you make big plans, and for a moment you really believe this is it. This is the time your life is going to change. But then morning comes, and that feeling, it fades. The alarm rings, and suddenly you don't feel like it anymore. The energy is gone, the excitement disappears. And now you're faced with a choice. Get up and do the work, or go back to what's comfortable. This is where most people lose. Because motivation is temporary, it's emotional. It depends on how you feel in the moment. And the truth is, you're not always going to feel like doing what needs to be done. Some days you'll feel tired. Some days you'll feel lazy. Some days you'll feel like quitting before you even start. And if you rely on motivation, those days will control your life. That's why discipline matters. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't ask if you're tired. It doesn't wait for the perfect mood. Discipline shows up anyway. It gets out of bed when your body is begging for more sleep. It keeps working when your mind is telling you to stop. It stays consistent when everything inside you wants to quit. And it's not easy. There's nothing glamorous about discipline. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's doing the same things over and over again, even when you don't see immediate results. It's pushing through boredom, through frustration, through doubt. It's choosing long-term success over short-term comfort, and that choice hurts sometimes, because your mind will try to trick you. It will tell you, you can skip today. It will say, you deserve a break. It will whisper, start tomorrow. And if you listen to that voice, even once, it gets stronger. One skip day turns into two turns into a week. And before you know it, you're right back where you started, wondering why nothing has changed. That's the cycle discipline breaks. Discipline is what keeps you going when motivation disappears. It's what separates the people who talk about success from the people who actually achieve it. Because anyone can start when they feel inspired, but very few can continue when it gets hard. And it always gets hard. There will be days when you feel like you're making no progress. Days when you question everything. Days when it feels like all your effort is going nowhere. And in those moments, motivation will not save you. Only discipline will. Because discipline reminds you why you started. It reminds you that growth takes time. It reminds you that every small step matters even when you can't see the results yet. It forces you to keep moving, even when you're tired, even when you're frustrated, even when you feel like giving up. And slowly, something begins to change. You start building habits. You start becoming stronger, not just physically, but mentally. You begin to trust yourself because you're doing what you said you would do. You're no longer controlled by your emotions. You're no longer waiting for the perfect moment. You're creating it. That's when everything shifts. Because once you develop discipline, you don't need motivation anymore. You don't need that temporary spark. You don't need to feel excited to take action. You just do it. And that consistency, that relentless commitment, that ability to show up every single day, no matter what, that's what takes you places motivation never could. Because motivation might get you started. But discipline is what carries you through the days when starting feels impossible. Comfort is the enemy of growth. It feels safe, doesn't it? Staying where you are, doing what you've always done, living inside routines that don't challenge you. There's no pressure there, no fear, no risk of failure, just a quiet, predictable life where nothing really hurts, but nothing really changes either. And that's the trap, because comfort doesn't destroy you all at once. It does it slowly, quietly. It makes you believe that where you are is enough, even when deep down you know you're capable of more. It convinces you to settle, to stay still, to avoid anything that feels difficult. It whispers, this is fine. But it's not. Because everything you want in life, growth, success, confidence, respect, lives outside that comfort zone. And the longer you stay inside it, the further away those things become. Comfort makes you lazy without you realizing it. You start choosing easy over necessary. You delay things that matter. You avoid challenges because they feel uncomfortable. You tell yourself you'll try later, but later never comes. And slowly you build a life that feels okay on the surface but empty underneath. You feel it at night. That quiet voice inside you that says you could be doing more. That feeling that you're wasting time, that frustration you can't explain because everything looks fine, but nothing feels right. That's what comfort does. It steals your potential. Because growth requires pressure, it requires struggle. It requires moments where you doubt yourself, where you feel lost, where you question if you're even capable. That's not a sign you're failing. That's a sign you're changing. But most people run from that feeling. They avoid anything that makes them uncomfortable. They stick to what's easy. They stay in environments that don't challenge them. They surround themselves with the same habits, the same mindset, the same limits. And then they wonder why their life never improves. You can't grow and stay comfortable at the same time. It doesn't work like that. If you want to become stronger, you have to face resistance. If you want to become better, you have to push through discomfort. If you want to change your life, you have to do things that scare you. There's no other way. You have to wake up when you don't feel like it. You have to work when you'd rather rest. You have to take risks when your mind is telling you to stay safe. You have to step into situations where you might fail, where you might be judged, where you might not succeed the first time. That's where growth begins. Not in comfort, not in safety, but in those moments where you feel stretched, challenged, exposed. That's where you discover who you really are. Because comfort hides your weaknesses. It allows you to avoid them. It keeps you in a place where you don't have to confront your fears. But the moment you step out of that zone, everything becomes clear. You see what you need to improve. You see where you've been holding back. You see how much more you're capable of. And yes, it's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. Growth is not meant to feel easy. It's not meant to feel safe. It's meant to push you, to test you, to force you to evolve. And every time you choose discomfort over ease, you are building something inside yourself that comfort could never give you. Strength, confidence, resilience. Because you start realizing that you can handle more than you thought. You start seeing that fear doesn't control you anymore. You start proving to yourself that you don't need everything to be perfect to take action. You just need to move. And once you break that pattern, once you stop choosing comfort as your default, your entire life begins to shift. You stop settling, you stop avoiding, you stop hiding, you start chasing, you start pushing, you start becoming. And that version of you, the one that embraces discomfort, the one that steps into challenges, the one that refuses to stay stuck, that version is unstoppable. Because while everyone else is choosing what's easy, you're choosing what makes you grow. Excuses are the language of the weak. They sound harmless at first. I'm tired. I don't have time. I'll start tomorrow. It's not the right moment. You say them casually, almost without thinking. They feel reasonable. They feel justified. And the more you repeat them, the more normal they become. But what you don't realize is that every excuse is a decision to stay the same. Because behind every excuse, there's an action you're avoiding. There's something you know you should be doing, but you're choosing not to. And instead of admitting that, you create a reason that makes it feel okay. That's how the weak version of you survives. It hides behind excuses. It tells you stories that protect your comfort. It convinces you that your situation is different, that your struggles are special, that your delay is justified. And the more you listen to it, the more power it gains, until one day excuses become your reality. You don't even question them anymore. You just accept them. And that's where everything starts to fall apart. Because excuses don't solve problems. They don't move you forward. They don't build anything. They only keep you stuck. You say you don't have time, but you spend hours scrolling, watching, wasting energy on things that don't matter. You say you're too tired, but you had enough energy to do everything except the one thing that could change your life. You say you'll start tomorrow, but deep down, you know tomorrow will look exactly like today. It's not about time. It's not about energy. It's about priorities. And excuses reveal the truth about what you're really choosing. That's the hard part to accept. Because once you remove the excuses, you're left with responsibility. You're left with the reality that your life is a result of your actions, not your circumstances. And that can feel uncomfortable. It can feel heavy. But it's also where your power is. Because if excuses are holding you back, then removing them sets you free. The moment you stop saying, I can't, and start asking, how can I, everything begins to shift. The moment you stop blaming your situation and start owning your choices, you take control of your life again. And it's not easy. Your mind will fight you. It will try to pull you back into old habits. It will try to give you new excuses, better excuses, smarter excuses. It will tell you to wait, to rest, to delay just one more time, because that's what it knows. That's what feels safe. But growth doesn't happen in safety. Growth happens when you stop negotiating with yourself, when you stop allowing excuses to have a voice, when you make a decision and follow through no matter how you feel. That's where strength is built, not in perfect conditions, not in ideal situations, but in those moments where you could make an excuse and you choose not to. That moment matters more than you think, because every time you reject an excuse, you become stronger. You build discipline, you build self-respect. You prove to yourself that you are in control. And once you taste that feeling, you don't want to go back. You don't want to be the person who always has a reason but never has results. You don't want to live a life full of what ifs and I could have. You don't want to look back and realize that your biggest obstacle was never the world, it was you. Your excuses. So you start cutting them off one by one. You stop explaining why you can't. You start focusing on what you can. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You start creating your own. And slowly your mindset changes. You become someone who takes action, someone who follows through, someone who doesn't let temporary feelings decide permanent outcomes. And that's when everything shifts, because the moment you stop speaking the language of excuses, you start speaking the language of results. Consistency beats talent every single time. Talent looks powerful from the outside. You see someone doing something effortlessly, and it makes you question yourself. It makes you feel like maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you don't have what it takes. Maybe you weren't born with that, something that makes success easier. And slowly that thought becomes an excuse. You start believing that talent is everything, that if you don't have it, there's no point in trying. But what you don't see is the full story. You don't see the hours behind the scenes. You don't see the failures, the repetition, the discipline that built that talent over time. You only see the result, and you assume it came naturally. It didn't, because raw talent without consistency fades. It's not enough to be good once. It's not enough to have potential. It's not enough to show up when you feel like it. If you're not consistent, your talent means nothing. You can be the most gifted person in the room, but if you don't put in the work every day, someone with less talent but more discipline will pass you, and they will keep passing you, because consistency builds something talent alone never can: reliability. It builds habits, it builds momentum, it builds a version of you that doesn't depend on mood or motivation. And that's where the real power is. Because consistency is not about doing something big once. It's about doing something small over and over again, even when it feels boring, even when it feels pointless, even when you don't see immediate results. That's the part most people can't handle. They want fast results. They want instant success. They want to see progress right away. And when it doesn't happen, they quit. They lose patience. They move on to something else. And they start over again and again, never giving anything enough time to grow. That's why they stay stuck. Because success doesn't come from intensity, it comes from repetition. From showing up every day. From doing the work when nobody is watching. From staying committed even when the excitement is gone. And that's not glamorous. There's nothing exciting about doing the same thing every day. There's nothing fun about pushing through days where you feel tired, distracted, or unmotivated. But that's exactly where consistency is built. In those quiet moments. In those unseen efforts. In those decisions that no one else notices but you. That's where the real transformation happens. Because every time you show up, you're reinforcing a habit. You're telling yourself, this is who I am. Not someone who tries. Not someone who starts and stops. But someone who finishes. Someone who commits. Someone who doesn't quit when things get repetitive. And over time, that identity becomes stronger than any talent. Because talent can give you a head start. But consistency keeps you in the race. It keeps you improving. It keeps you moving forward even when progress feels slow. And that slow progress, it adds up day by day, step by step, until one day you look back and realize how far you've come. Not because you were the most talented, but because you refused to stop. You refused to give up. You refused to be inconsistent. And that's what separates the ones who make it from the ones who don't. Not talent. Not luck. Not opportunity. Consistency, the willingness to show up again and again, no matter what. Because in the end, it's not about how good you are. It's about how long you can keep going. You don't need more time, you need better habits. Everybody keeps saying the same thing. I don't have time. It sounds real. It sounds valid. It feels like the truth. Your day is full, your energy is low, and it feels like there's just no space left to work on yourself. But if you slow down and really look at your day, the truth starts to show. You have time, you just don't always use it the right way. Because time isn't the problem. Habits are. The small things you do every single day without thinking, without questioning, those are the things shaping your life. Not the big moments. Not the once innate wild efforts, the daily patterns. The way you start your morning, the way you spend your free time, the way you respond when you feel tired, bored, or distracted. That's what defines your results. You don't wake up one day successful. You wake up with habits that either pushed you forward or held you back. And most people don't realize how much time they're actually wasting. Minutes turn into hours. Scrolling turns into distraction. Distraction turns into delay. And delay turns into regret. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly. Until one day you wonder where all your time went. But the truth is, it didn't disappear. It was spent on habits that didn't serve you. That's the hard part to accept. Because it means the problem isn't outside of you. It's not your schedule. It's not your responsibilities. It's what you choose to do with the time you already have. And habits are powerful. They run your life on autopilot. You don't have to think about them. You don't have to decide. You just follow them. That's why bad habits are so dangerous. They feel easy. They feel normal. They feel comfortable. But they slowly take control of your time, your energy, your focus without you even noticing. And before you know it, your day is gone again. Nothing meaningful done. Nothing changed. That's not a time problem. That's a habit problem. Because if you replace just a few of those habits, everything would shift. Wake up a little earlier. Focus for 1 hour without distractions. Use your time with intention instead of reacting to everything around you. Small changes, but powerful ones. Because habits don't need to be big to be effective. They just need to be consistent. That's where people get it wrong. They try to change everything at once. They set huge goals. They expect instant results. And when it gets overwhelming, they quit. They go back to old patterns. Back to comfort. Back to the same habits that kept them stuck in the first place. Real change doesn't work like that. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things every day, even when it feels small, even when it feels like it doesn't matter. Because those small habits build momentum. They build discipline. They build a version of you that knows how to use time instead of wasting it. And once that starts to happen, everything feels different. You stop saying, I don't have time. You start saying, I'll make time. You stop reacting to your day. You start controlling it. You stop letting distractions win. You start focusing on what actually matters. And slowly your life begins to reflect that. Not because you suddenly had more hours, but because you used the hours you had differently. That's the shift. That's the power of habits. They don't just change your schedule. They change your identity. They turn you into someone who takes action, someone who follows through, someone who doesn't wait for the perfect moment, Because you don't need more time to change your life. You need to change what you do with the time you already have.